we have traced the colonial lineage of our constitution, and we have met the assembly that framed it. Now we ask the natural next question. What kind of constitution did they actually build? Every constitution makes a set of fundamental design choices, and A212, how power is divided, how the government is formed, how rights are protected, how it can be changed. The choices our founders made give the Constitution its distinctive character, and these are what we call its salient features. Today, we will walk through the most important of them: why it is the lengthiest written constitution in the world, how it balances rigidity with flexibility, why it is federal yet leans toward a strong center, why we chose a parliamentary system, and how it weaves together rights, duties, an independent judiciary, secularism, and universal adult franchise into one coherent design. Understanding these features is not optional background and A212. It is the backbone of polity, tested constantly in prelims and demanded in every mains answer on the nature of our constitution. So let us examine the design. Here is our path for today. First, the lengthiest written constitution. Second, its blend of rigidity and flexibility. Third, federalism with a unitary bias. Fourth, the parliamentary form of government. Fifth, rights, duties, and an independent judiciary. And sixth, secularism, citizenship, and universal franchise. Let us begin. Let us begin with the feature you notice first: sheer size. The Constitution of India is the lengthiest written constitution in the world. Where the constitution of a country, like the United States, runs to only a few pages of broad principles, ours contains hundreds of articles, divided into parts, along with numerous schedules, and it has grown further with amendments over the decades. It is a vast, detailed document that tries to spell out the working of government far more completely than most constitutions attempt. Why did our founders make it so long? Several reasons combined. India is enormously diverse, and the Constitution had to address the needs of many communities, regions, and languages. It drew directly on the very detailed Government of India Act of 1935, inheriting its bulk. It had to make special provisions for particular states and for the historically disadvantaged. And, wary after colonial rule, the framers preferred to write things down explicitly rather than leave them to convention, so that rights and procedures could not be quietly ignored. Length was a deliberate choice for certainty. This detail has a real consequence. Because so much is written into the document itself, and A212 matters that other countries leave to ordinary law or unwritten practice, and A212. Our Constitution governs a wider range of subjects directly, and it needs frequent, careful amendment to keep pace with a changing nation. Its length is both its great strength, offering clarity and completeness, and the source of its complexity. So the takeaway: ours is the lengthiest written constitution in the world, and A212, a deliberate choice, born of Indian 39, Setinine time. Sativersity, the bulky 1935 Act, special provisions, and a preference for writing things down explicitly, and A212, which gives it unusual clarity at the cost of complexity. The second feature is about change, and A212, how Constitution can be amended, and A212, and here our founders struck a careful middle path. Constitutions are often classified as rigid or flexible. A rigid constitution is hard to change, requiring a special, difficult procedure. A flexible one can be changed as easily as an ordinary law. Each has a danger. A constitution too rigid cannot adapt to new times and may break under pressure. One too flexible offers no stability and can be tampered with by any passing majority. Our founders wanted neither extreme. So they made our Constitution a blend of the two. Some of its provisions can be amended relatively easily by an ordinary majority of Parliament. Others, more important, required a special majority and 8 Hodu Patha Sol, a higher threshold within Parliament. And a third category, touching the federal structure, requires that special majority plus the approval of half the state legislatures. So the states have a say in changes that affect them. different levels of importance are protected by different levels of difficulty. This blend is one of the quiet strengths of our system. It means the Constitution can evolve and it had to evolve, and it has been amended many times to meet new needs and it had to evolve, while its most fundamental features remain genuinely hard to alter, guarding against hasty or self-serving change. It bends without breaking. The exact classification of what needs which majority is a favorite prelims target, so it is worth learning precisely. So the takeaway, our Constitution is neither rigid nor flexible, but a deliberate blend and 8-1-12, some parts amendable by ordinary majority, more important parts by special majority, and federal provisions by special majority, plus ratification by half the states, and 8-1, letting it evolve while protecting its core. The third feature is one of the most examined and most subtle in all of polity, the nature of our federalism. Our Constitution establishes a federal system and power is divided between a central government and the state governments, each with its own sphere. There is a written constitution that both must obey, a division of powers between them, 2 lists of subjects, an independent judiciary to settle disputes between center and states, and a bicameral legislature. By all these standard tests, India is a federation, not a unitary state where all power sits at the center. And yet our federalism has a pronounced tilt toward the center, an 8-1-2-12, a unitary bias. The center holds the more important subjects and, in a clash on shared subjects, generally prevails. There is a single, unified citizenship for the whole country rather than separate state citizenships. There is an integrated judiciary and a single unified set of all India services serving both levels. And in an emergency, the system can transform to concentrate power at the center, temporarily behaving almost like a unitary state. The scales are weighted toward Delhi. Why this design? The founders framed the Constitution in the shadow of partition, acutely aware of the forces that could pull a diverse nation apart. They wanted the benefits of federalism and 8-12, accommodating diversity, bringing government closer to the people and 8-12 without the risk of fragmentation. So they built a federation strong enough to hold together under strain. This is often summed up by saying India has a federal structure with a unitary spirit, or is a union of states, rather than a mere federation of them. So the takeaway, India is genuinely federal and 8-1-12 divided powers, a supreme constitution, an arbitrating judiciary, and 8-1-12, but with a deliberate unitary bias toward a strong center, single citizenship, integrated services, and emergency provisions, designed to hold a diverse nation together after partition. The fourth feature is the very shape of our government. We chose a parliamentary system, not a presidential one. In a parliamentary system, the executive is not separate from and independent of the legislature. It is drawn from it and answerable to it. The real executive power lies with a council of ministers headed by the Prime Minister, and these ministers are members of the legislature who remain in office only so long as they command the confidence of the popularly elected House. The head of state, an 8-12, our president, an 8-12, is the nominal or constitutional head, while real power rests with the elected government of the day. Executive and legislature are fused, not walled apart. This contrasts sharply with the presidential system, like that of the United States, where a directly elected president heads the executive independently of the legislature and serves for a fixed term, regardless of legislative confidence. We follow the British model and 8-2-12, sometimes called the Westminster model and 8-2-12, which was familiar from our own experience under the Government of India Acts, and which the framers judged better suited to India. Why parliamentary? The founders valued its core virtue, continuous accountability. In this system, the government must answer to the legislature every single day and 800,012 through questions, debates, and ultimately a vote of no confidence that can remove it at any time. That daily responsibility and the familiarity Indians already had with the system weighed more with the framers than the stability of fixed presidential term. They chose responsibility over rigidity. So the takeaway, India adopted the parliamentary Westminster model and 80-21, a real executive of ministers drawn from and answerable to the legislature, with a nominal head of state, and 80-21, chosen for its continuous accountability and its familiarity over the separated, fixed-term presidential alternative. The fifth feature is the moral heart of the Constitution, the way it secures rights, sets goals, and names duties. At its core are the fundamental rights and A2I2I2 a set of guaranteed freedoms and protections, such as equality, freedom of speech, and protection of life and liberty, which the state cannot violate and which are enforceable in the courts. If the government infringes them, you can go directly to the higher judiciary for a remedy. These rights are the great guarantee of individual liberty, and the feature that most clearly marks India as a rights-respecting democracy rather than a mere electoral one. Alongside them stand the directive principles of state policy. These are not enforceable in court, but they are, in the Constitution and LK's own words, fundamental in the governance of the country. A set of goals and ideas and alike to Hadu, social and economic justice, welfare, dignity, and 8-12. That the state is directed to strive toward when it makes laws and policy. A fundamental right secured political democracy, the directive principles aim at social and economic democracy. The two together express the founders and Pine full vision of a just society. Completing the scheme are the fundamental duties added later by amendment, which remind every citizen that rights carry responsibilities, and 802 to respect the Constitution, to promote harmony, to protect the environment and public property. Rights, goals, and duties thus form a single balanced framework. What the citizen is guaranteed, what the state must pursue, and what the citizen owes in return. This trio is among the most heavily examined areas in all of UPSC. So the takeaway, the Constitution in NRS moral core is a balanced scheme and attitude our goal. Justiciable, fundamental rights, guaranteeing liberty, non-justiciable but fundamental directive principles guiding the state towards social and economic justice, and fundamental duties reminding citizens that rights carry responsibilities. The sixth feature is the guardian that makes all the others real, an independent and integrated judiciary. A constitution that guarantees rights and divides powers is only as good as the body that enforces it. And our founders entrusted that role to a strong, independent judiciary headed by the Supreme Court. To keep it free from pressure, the Constitution deliberately insulates judges and A212 through secure tenure, protected salaries, and a difficult removal process, and A212 so they can decide against the government of the day without fear. An independent judiciary is the ultimate protector of the citizen against the state. Our system is also integrated and single, which is distinctive. Unlike some federations that have separate sets of federal and state codes, India has one unified hierarchy. The Supreme Court at the top, the high courts below it, and the subordinate courts beneath them, all enforcing both central and state laws. A single chain of courts serves the whole nation, which strengthens the unity of the legal system and reinforces that unitary bias we discussed earlier. The judiciary in the 90s crowning power is judicial review and 8-212, the authority to examine laws and government actions, and to strike down those that violate the Constitution. This is what makes the Constitution genuinely supreme, rather than a mere statement of intent. If Parliament or a state legislature passes a law that breaches a fundamental right or exceeds its powers, the courts can declare it void. Judicial review is the mechanism through which the Constitution actually reigns over ordinary law. So the takeaway, an independent judiciary, insulated to decide without fear, organized as a single integrated hierarchy under the Supreme Court, and armed with the power of judicial review to strike down unconstitutional laws, is the guardian that turns every other feature from promise into reality. The seventh feature gathers three defining commitments that together define the character of the Indian Republic. First, India is a secular state. This does not mean hostility to religion. It means the state has no religion of its own, treats all religions equally, and guarantees to every citizen the freedom to profess, practice, and propagate the faith of their choice. In a country of extraordinary religious diversity, secularism is not an abstraction, but the very condition of living together. And the Constitution builds it into the foundation of the state in T9's relationship with faith. Second, India has a single, unified citizenship. Even though we have a federal system with many states, every Indian is a citizen of India alone, not separately of a state, and enjoys the same rights of citizenship across the entire country. This deliberately promotes a sense of one nation and one people, cutting against the regional and communal divisions that a system of separate state citizenships might have deepened. Third, the Constitution rests on universal adult franchise and 82112, the right of every adult citizen to vote, regardless of wealth, education, gender, caste, or religion. This was a bold and momentous choice in 1950, when many older democracies had taken generations to extend the vote so widely. By granting it at once, the founders declared their absolute faith in the common citizen and made political equality the bedrock of the republic. It is the feature that makes India, in the fullest sense, a democracy of all its people. So the takeaway: 3 commitments define the Republic and 289's character and 82112. A secular state that stands equally toward all religions. A single unified citizenship that binds the nation as one people. An universal adult franchise that grants every adult the vote and makes political equality the foundation. Let us step back and see these features as one design and turn that understanding into exam performance. Notice that the salient features are not a random list, an A2 poll. They fit together into a coherent whole. A lengthy, detailed document provides certainty. A rigid yet flexible amendment process lets it endure and evolve. A federation with a unitary bias holds a diverse nation together. A parliamentary executive keeps power accountable. Rights, duties, and directive principles balance liberty with social justice. An independent judiciary guards the whole structure. And secularism, single citizenship, and universal franchise define an inclusive republic. Each feature answers a real problem of governing India, and together they form a single, deliberate architecture. This wholeness is exactly what Mains rewards. When a question asks about the nature of the Indian Constitution, the strong answer does not simply list features. It shows how they interlock and ATID or toll, how the unitary bias and integrated judiciary reinforce national unity, how rights and directive principles together aim at for democracy. Seeing the design, not just the parts, is the mark of a top answer. For prelims, the same features are tested as precise facts. Which majority amends which provision? Which features come from where? What makes the judiciary independent? So study each feature 2 ways and A21 know it exactly for the objective questions, and understand how it connects for the descriptive ones. A 1-page map of the features with a line linking each to the problem it solves serves both at once. So the takeaway: the salient features form one coherent architecture, each solving a real problem of governing India and 8080 to world. Learn each precisely for prelims and understand how they interlock for mains, and you master the backbone of the entire polity syllabus. Let us gather the whole class in one breath. Ours is the lengthiest written constitution in 8th world, detailed by deliberate choice, for certainty in a diverse land. It is a blend of rigidity and flexibility, amendable at 3 different levels of difficulty. It is federal, with a unitary bias and 8212, a strong center, single citizenship, built to hold the nation together. It adopts the parliamentary Westminster model and 8112, an executive answerable to the legislature every day. It secures fundamental rights, guides the state through directive principles, and names fundamental duties. It rests on an independent, integrated judiciary with judicial review, and on secularism, single citizenship, and universal adult franchise. Next class, NA24, the sources of the Constitution, What we borrowed, from where, and why. One idea at a time. So those are the salient features